INSiiGHTS Sports Talk.
1, 2, talk and talk.
INSiiGHTS Sports Talk. Traveling the country for the biggest stories in collegiate sports. Bringing you the news that will impact every college athlete in America. From the Ivy League to the SWAC, Big Sky to the Big Ten, Notre Dame, FAMU, Miami or Maine. No university is too big, no college too small. We tell it all.
Talk and talk.
INSiiGHTS Sports Talk with your hosts, the coach, Mickey Clayton and Clayton Smith. They're bringing you insight on all the latest stories from all the biggest names in collegiate sports. Join us for the next 60 minutes for INSiiGHTS Sports Talk. The sports talk show of a different kind.
Gentlemen, how's everybody doing today?
Doing pretty good, Mickey. How you doing?
Fine, man.
Man, let's talk a little bit about, we did a 2-minute drill earlier on there were no winners in the Jameis Winston situation and all the fallout and everything from it. But as we talk, you know, there have been a lot of different sexual crimes involving athletes, coaches, players, administrators, and, you know, even a list that goes around that talks about the 10 worst sex scandals of all time. The one that FSU have or just went through, will it end up being in that top 10?
I don't know, because actually, being that Winston was not charged, I don't know. I mean, all of the fallout and the aura and all the hype around it is going to make it something that's not going to go away for a long time. But I don't know if it's a scandal, being that he was never charged. So some of these other issues, some of these other incidents, because there was actual charge, you know, puts it in a different category.
Okay. One of the things that I really had to give credit to was actually the FSU administration, considering that both of the central figures in that were Florida State University students, that they seemed to walk that delicate line, and they did it admirably in terms of representing and respecting the rights of both of their students. And I thought that was something that went unnoticed to a lot of people, just how they handled that administratively.
Well, you know, the thing that's amazing about that case being that, you know, Winston, you know, was or maybe is on track to win the Heisman, and the team was in that chase for the championship. The way things are these days, how invasive the media and internet, it's amazing the young lady's name, you know, didn't surface because of, you know, invariably that happens. Somebody, somehow or another, although they're supposed to protect the victim, we know a lot of times that doesn't always happen. And that was probably a positive out of this whole situation, that, you know, her identity was protected in spite of the fact that I think TMZ is one that really kind of started the ball rolling.
Well, and it's interesting, it's protected to media, but all the students know who it is. I mean, they're on social media,
Right.
and all of them know
protection
who it
from
is.
social media.
Right.
They'll find out and put it out there.
Yeah, and the students do. I mean, you know, Facebook is kind of something that the older people, we've taken over, and they've migrated towards Twitter, and which I think is the worst thing that ever happened to the English language, because they only have a certain number of characters, and they got more abbreviations and misspelled words. I'm an English teacher. I'd probably try to outlaw my kids from even using Twitter. But, you know, another similar, you know, I won't say similar, but, you know, we've had some other things that have happened, you know, and we've talked about it and looked at it. I mean, even we had a college on the Midwest out there in the snow country that had a litany of sexual allegations in terms of the number of football players and athletes that had charges against them that went unreported.
Right. The Justice Department actually went into that particular state and into that particular university, which is a major university in that state, and they found out that they had over 80 on-campus sexual assaults within a 3-year period. And a lot of those did involve athletes. Now, how many were actually charged? I think they found out that maybe 10% of those assaults were actually false, but they could not charge them, as happened in the Florida State case. But they still said that it was over 80 sexual assaults on that campus in a 3-year period, and they're still really trying to get to the bottom of a lot of these different cases. One of them was a very well-noted case in which evidently a student who was a victim, a male victim, committed suicide, and that has also launched an anti-hazing situation against gays in that particular state, and it's become a very...
One of those was an athlete?
That particular person was an athlete, correct.
And
not the person who committed suicide, but the person who allegedly assaulted this person was an athlete. Wow.
Well, I know out there in Montana, they had I went on and called it. We called Florida State names. So we went out there and they had a running back that a girl went to sleep and she woke up, the guy taking her clothes off and sexually assaulted her, and he denied it, but eventually he came forward and admitted what happened and is being charged. But they have had a lot of things happen out there with gang rapes and going on, having multiple people that they end up having sex with, and it's just kind of crazy. Then you look at Duke and Lacrosse. Duke Lacrosse team and the dancer they had that came out there, and man, I think we were a little lucky earlier because we have some comments from Don Yaeger, who actually wrote a book about that. And right now we're going to let Don come back and we have some original content from him from an interview we had earlier and tell us about that Duke Lacrosse situation. So INSiiGHTS is coming back, and we're going to let Don Yaeger, if GT can cue it up, give you some insight about what happened out there.
Yeah, crazy. But like most of America, I read and saw the stories about the Duke Lacrosse players and their hiring of strippers to come entertain them at a party, and the allegations that one of those strippers was raped. And like most people, I would guess, I assigned judgment. I immediately looked and thought, rich white guys from a spoiled background, athletic, team that was really good in its environment, a sport I didn't know much about, and poor African American woman, reduced to the role of stripper, and I immediately assumed, as everybody else did, that these guys were just horrible and had done exactly as charged. I even was asked on national TV about it, and like others, I dismissed them as just bad people, right? Mm-hmm. Well, several months later, I got the opportunity. A big publisher said, "By the way, this story continues to kind of hang out there, and no one seems to really have a complete sense of what's going on. Would you take it on? Would you just go? Would you go start investigating, looking at the story of what was really happening at Duke?" And ultimately, as we all know, it was proven that the prosecutor in that case had done some really horrific things to try to drum up a case that he needed because he was trying to win an election, and the truth of the case, the facts of it, didn't quite bear out anywhere near the story that was originally trumpeted, and in doing that, not only were the charges dismissed against the Duke athletes, but the prosecutor ultimately lost his job and was disbarred. And interestingly, the woman who was who everybody believed and who the prosecutor hung his career and the lives of these three boys on, not just had other legal issues, but then several years later ended up stabbing somebody and is now in prison for her own set of circumstances. So it was a great lesson for me, not just in journalism, but the opportunity to learn, but in passing judgment, and how often we rush to it, right? How often we, without a true sense of what's going get out there ahead of the story, and especially in an internet age where everybody has to have an opinion, you got to have it quickly. That I've really grown to learn a lot through that effort to try to hopefully tone myself down some.
1, 2, talk and talk.
Work at it now, hard work. Come on,
I grew up wanting to play basketball and having fun with the game.
Got him.
When I'm playing, it's not even half the game. More than anything, it's mental. When should I go?
As soon as they switch, that's when you got to
We put in a lot of hard work until you join our team. You inherit that. You inherit being selfless. And you inherit what it means to be a part of a group like this because, it doesn't come around a lot.
I'm Bill Hamilton, retired sports information director from South Carolina State, and I encourage you to listen to Insights. Enjoy.
Well, leave it to Yaeger. He's the master of investigative reporting.
He'll get to the bottom of it.
won't he? He will get to the bottom of it, And we just keep having things that go on. I mean, we had a young lady at Notre Dame who tried to press charges in an assault case, and they didn't take her seriously, and she committed suicide because she didn't feel like people believed her. But we have situations just all across the map. I mean, with the players, coaches. Big Al, tell us a little bit about some of the coaching situations we've had.
Well, I mean, you think about Rick Pitino and that situation. Supposedly had sex with an acquaintance of his head trainer. An
acquaintance of his head trainer?
Right.
Okay.
I think, but either way, he had sex with this lady in a restaurant. I think it was either in the restroom of a restaurant or something to that nature. And then she came back. It turned out it was almost like a setup, where they were trying to bribe him to get money. But nonetheless, he admitted to having had the relationship. Then you had Bobby Petrino, who was formerly the football coach at Arkansas, who had hired his girlfriend to help as part of the marketing team for football. And of course, they had that highly publicized incident where, they were riding on his motorcycle, had a car or had an accident, and he was fired because it was discovered that when he had put her on staff, that he was actually having an affair with her at the same time. So you do have, this stuff not only applies to athletes, but it applies to coaches. And I think it's part of that privilege that athletes have, or protection that athletes and coaches seem to enjoy, that, folks tend to believe them over victims, and people tend to believe that folks are just trying to take advantage of the fame of these men.
So that's your read on it too, Clayton?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not just the athletes, as Alan mentioned. You have a lot of coaches. You have administrators involved in certain situations. We've heard of athletic directors being involved, and other administrative personnel on the sports side being involved. I also wanted to make sure that we say this is not something that's just unique to sports, because you have lawyers and doctors and truck drivers and other businessmen and businesswomen with the same type of situation. So we want to make sure that we're careful not to specify that this is just something unique to sports.
Well,
we're operating within the sports realm.
Well, research by Benedict and Crosset said that one out of every 3 sexual assaults on campus are committed by athletes. That was kind of interesting. And they said further, the same authors found that student athletes perpetrated almost 6 times more sexual assaults than their collegiate peers. Interesting. Yeah, I wish we were on TV so we could see the looks of the crew. As I read that,
when they say 1 out of 3, so that means 2 out of 3 are not athletes. But then they come back and say that
60.
They say more globally, Benedict and Crosset found that 1 in 3 sexual assaults occurring on campuses are committed by athletes. Further, the same authors found that the student athletes perpetrated almost 6 times more sexual assault than their collegiate peers.
So it's 6 times more.
But I'm with Clayton. I mean, first it's saying 1 in 3.
Right. So that means 2 and 3 are not.
No, what that means is that one person committing a lot of sexual crimes.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, that he don't just stop with one. He continues on almost like a serial.
Well, let me ask you two guys a question, since you were both, high-profile athletes back in your day.
Clayton might have been high profile. There wasn't no high profile down where I was sitting by the water cooler.
I was very low profile.
But did you find for the most part that athletes were probably approached more by ladies and stuff like that, to where maybe guys took it the wrong way or whatever? I mean,
Alvin has changed so much.
Right.
I mean, and when we played way back in the day, if we traveled, I mean, we were winning a lot when we played, and Coach kind of turned us loose afterwards, and we would have parties in the hotels. And as we got older, and when I coached, I didn't allow them that same leeway, because what happens is that times had changed, and while you're out, if you mess around and do something, it's really negative. And it was negative then, but we just felt like it was better that we keep the guys and the girls, when I coached them, under protective custody a little bit more. They didn't have, even if they went out with their parents, we had a curfew for them to be back in, and we were just really adamant in terms of just trying to make sure that they got their rest and the things that they needed to be able to play and things like that. But it's more things out there that are negative. And, just in terms of how you raise your children, there's more things that are out there that are negative.
Well, and
I want to hear what Clayton got to say on that now, because...
Well, I agree with what you were saying as far as when we were playing, we played around the same time. We had a little bit more leeway than the kids have later on, a little bit closer to this particular period in time. And plus, I don't think we did as many crazy things as some of these kids now do, but that's because the times changed, like you said. In my situation, I was also able to deal, for about 14 years on the pro sports level. And I know that they also have a little bit different dynamic in that, but it's not, as far as the NBA is concerned, I know one thing, it's not as widespread as a lot of people like to make it seem like it is.
But Clayton, the times have changed. I mean, even when we were growing up, if a young lady said that she had sex with somebody, then people generally believed her, because they didn't want to admit that they were doing anything. And then it was after we got a little older that we found that people will say they did something when nothing happened.
Right.
But during that time, young ladies weren't really admitting to sleeping with somebody. They were pretty much saying, no, nothing happened, da-da-da-da-da. So, I mean, it just changed. It became, I won't say acceptable, but acceptable. Well,
discretion, I think, is going out of the window. I think all three of us are of that generation where, no matter what you did, you didn't go around bragging about it. But now, it seems like, well, and I think with as we mentioned earlier, with the social media and everything now, people just don't seem to have those reservations about talking about, their business, as like they used to, whether it's movie stars, athletes, whatever. I mean, it seems like everything is kind of fair game now. So,
well, Al, even now, and it's changed, but
right.
If I've been on a campus and heard somebody call a young lady a hoe and say, "Hey, hoe, come here. You talking about me? What you want?" And there were years ago, if you said that, then somebody was going to get slapped or hit. It was going to be a fight. And I'm not blaming women at all. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that times have changed and how people go about things that change. But one thing hadn't changed as a dad. If it was one of mine, I wouldn't have to worry. Because I'm going to handle the situation. And I say, if something happened, I don't care how you threaten or what somebody may tell you they'll do. If somebody does something to you, you tell daddy and go to sleep. Don't worry about it. And I don't care, uncle, granddaddy, preacher, teacher, coach, you just come tell me and then go to sleep, because it ain't going to be yours. You go to sleep, have a good night's sleep. Don't worry about it, because I'm going to handle the situation after that. And we're going to save the taxpayers some money. Insights taking a break. We'll be back. Insights, 2 eyes in the middle. INSiiGHTS. We want to hear what you have to say.
1, 2, talk that talk.
Why is it better to get what you want now instead of later?
Because you don't want to wait to eat your raisins.
You don't want to wait to eat your raisins?
No.
Why not?
Because they'll turn into grapes.
Not sure that's the way it works.
Yes.
Are you competing for cutest kid right now?
Yes.
And what place are you in?
Kindergarten?
That's adorable.
It's not complicated. Now is better. And AT&T is the nation's fastest and now most reliable 4G LTE network.
Coach Cy Alexander, men's basketball coach at North Carolina A&T State University, and I'd like to certainly promote you all listening to Mickey Clayton on Insights, and please talk that talk. It's a great program, and it's going to give you knowledge on not only sports, but on life in general.
Insights back. We took a break. The guys went and got me some water, fanning me, trying to cool me off. Y'all start laughing. I just tried to speak the truth. That's a daddy's role.
We had to give him a Gatorade bath.
Get him a Gatorade bath, okay. But again, we talk about these things, and it's a part of life. It's a part of things that go on. And as coaches, you have to talk to your athletes. As parents, you have to continue to talk to your children. These things will continue to happen. But the rights of all the students have to be protected, the male and the female, and that's my thought. What you guys say?
Well, yeah, everybody has to be protected. You gotta protect the innocent. You also gotta protect the people who have been alleged to have perpetrated a crime, and they find out later on that they really did not do that. That did not happen, which is what we're talking about in the Florida State case. So you have got to. There has to be a balance of, all parties have to be protected.
But where do you? The truth varies from one person to the next.
Exactly.
2 people, 3 people can see the exact same scenario and it be different.
Right.
And so we have to protect everybody. I agree with you 100%. But where's that thin line? And I know young ladies who tell guys, no, stop, And then later on, 3 or 4 days later, well, you could have got some. And I said, well, you said no. I said, but I really didn't mean no. And I said, well, you moved my hand, you got it, that meant no to me. No, I was just saying that. So then that's kind of, and I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying that some situations, that sends mixed signals. Then you get in a situation where the guy says, the next time she told me no, but she really didn't mean no, then he's trying to make a value judgment. I try to tell those guys that I talk to, no mean no, leave it alone. Don't try to make a value judgment. No means stop. And if you didn't get any that time, then you just didn't get any. That was just a time. That was a piece you missed, or a young lady that you wasn't able to be with. And move on and try and find somebody else.
Well, it was amazing reading a lot of the coverage, on Sports Illustrated and online, how, some of the people commenting on articles were saying, well, Winston's name is all smeared everywhere. How is it? I mean, now, folks, why is it? How can somebody just throw that out there and they not be named? And of course, people would come behind them and say, look, that's how the law is. It protects the victim. Because now what happened if it really was a rape? Now her name's out, she's basically being dragged through the mud even before the trial. So people,
and they're trying to keep
protection.
They're trying to keep them from being afraid to report it,
right?
For retribution and things that can happen, and a lot of it people already know who it is. They, especially on a college campus, they already know. The students know before the law enforcement know. The students know before the coach knows what's going on. And you read, that's why a lot of coaches are on Twitter, and they have assistant coaches assigned to Twitter and assigned to Facebook to follow what's being said. Because the kids go up there, they go off on the coaches and practice and everything else, and all the stuff that used to be hallowed and sacred within the team is on social media, and you can't take it back.
Which is why the police are also on Twitter and Facebook.
Right. And that's what we tell people on Facebook, even about our students who go out on job interviews.
Right, exactly.
That they can't put all that craziness on Facebook.
Because it will come to light.
Yeah, and on Instagram. And they put all these pictures, and some of those pictures aren't becoming, and you lose your job or don't get the job.
Don't get the job.
I've heard of companies that want your password on Facebook, and if you don't give them the password, they don't give you the interview. So we keep trying to tell them, you got to be careful putting everything up there on social media. And I'm in the Bahamas for a week. All right, so let me see. They gone for a week. They had those flat screen TVs. I got time to go in there and steal them. There's a good and bad to it. Well, Insights, we appreciate you being with us on what is a hot and controversial topic. The rights of the students do have to be protected. We both sides, male and female, female and male, just all the way around. And thanks for the tidbits you added, Clayton, about the person in the suicide. I mean, it crosses genders as well.
It does.
And in this day, the safety of our kids on both sides are paramount concern to us, and we want everybody to think about what they do. Young ladies, when you go somewhere, you need to go in a group. You need to leave as a group. You need to have clear codes of distress between each other. I've got young ladies that have fought each other, that were friends because they saw somebody put something in their drink, and the girl didn't believe her. And she went over and knocked the drink out of her hand and gave her $10. The girls, you have to protect yourself in situations. You got to have a clear code that it's all right to go with this guy, where we going, and everything else. And you have to watch each other.
And if there's a question about it, don't go.
Don't go. Exactly right. Don't go. And guys, you can't get caught up in that wolf pack mentality, being one of the guys doing stuff. You've always heard coming up that if everybody jumped out the window, would you jump out the window? If everybody jump off the bridge, would you jump off a bridge? Athletes, you come into this, you are developed to be leaders. Don't be followers. Don't follow in the group and get yourself into a situation that you resent. Insights, we appreciate you. Let us hear from you. INSiiGHTS, 2 eyes in the middle. Insights.
1, 2, talk that talk.
Thanks to the crew. Alvin Hollins, our director and sometimes co-host. Clayton Smith, our co-host. Arnett Moore, our music producer. Julio, the voice of one, our blogger. And our producer, Gerald Tooks of G Squared Productions. Talk to you soon. Insights.
INSiiGHTS is a copyright of Mac4 Enterprises, a Florida corporation. This broadcast is produced under the exclusive ownership of Mac4 Enterprises and is the intellectual property and trademark of Mac4 Enterprises. The comments of the host and other individual speakers on INSiiGHTS represent their independent thoughts and representations.